Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. I want to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum tonight. And before we get started, I'd like to welcome our new member, Bob Andrade, who just was appointed by the City Council last week. Bob, you wanted to say, introduce yourself and, tell us a little about yourself. I know it's your first meeting here, so.
Yeah, my name is Bob Andrade. I live in Riverside with my wife and dog. My children are grown. When I worked, I'm retired. When I worked, I was the Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer of Pawtucket Credit Union, which is now Postal One Credit Union. So I was very happy to be asked to serve on the committee, and I hope I can add something to the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Welcome. So the first order of business tonight is a vote on the approval of minutes of the February 15th meeting of 2024. Those were sent to us in advance. So if any discussion on that or a motion to approve? Second, Mr. O'Connell, any discussion? All those in favor? Great, motion approves. We have a couple of new business items tonight. First, we are appointing 2 new members to the Design Review Committee. The first member is C.T. Najaran. C.T. lives in Lynn Avenue in Rumford. I don't think he's here tonight, but his background, he has a master's degree in actuarial science. He spent a number of years in financial and banking and doing financial analysis. So he'll be joining the Design Review Committee on April 10th. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint CT. Great. All those in favor? Thank you. Second member is Jacques Afonso. He has a master's degree in business administration, has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. He has experience in commercial construction activities. He lives on John Street in East Providence. So again, I don't think he's here tonight, but he'll be here on April 10th. So if I could have a motion to approve. Have a second. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. So we'll be contacting them about the meeting on April 10th, and we'll be adding them to the website as members of the Design Review Committee. So the next item is, I'll give a little background, but we are seeking approval to transfer $103,625 in funds from our reserves to transfer to neighborhood Blackstone River Valley for the Ivy Place development. So if, many of the new members don't remember, but there was a number of years ago where we received a payment in lieu of taxes, a payment in lieu for affordable housing at another development that was set aside for the project across the street called Ivy Place. The project had numerous delays. I think some of us remember those, Mr. Hardcastle. Every 6 months, we pledged the money to that development, but nothing was getting done. And then we always held the money there for them in the hopes that the project would move ahead. And fortunately it did. But during the delay, we did have a request for additional in lieu of money to support a project on Sutton Avenue for about 38 affordable housing rental units that came to us. And the commission at the time, rather than just letting the money languish, we decided to vote to give $200,000 of the 778 available to us to support that Sutton Avenue project, which resulted in 38 affordable housing units on Sutton Avenue. And that developer was One Neighborhood Builders. But obviously by doing that, we sort of fell short a little bit about what we were obligated to provide to Neighborhood Blackstone Riverworks, which was a new developer, which fortunately got the project moved forward, as you can see across the street. And we have tonight Joe Garlick, who's here to give us a little update on the project and then provide some discussion, and I can discuss the source of the transfer as well. So Joe, if you want to come up and explain where the project is and what the expectation is for completion. Okay. Yeah, is that mic work over there? Okay, good. You can go over there. So,
Okay, yeah, so we've been going great guns. We're about 70% completed over there. The project will have 13 affordable homeownership units for families earning from 60% to 100% of the median. In English, the 60% median income for a family of four is 61,000. 80%, it's 81,000. And for 100%, it's $106,000. So there are 3 tiers of income eligibility. We have 4 live-work units over there. Those are the ones that are all fronting Taunton Avenue. You can sort of see the commercial look of those first floor units. And then there are 9 other just straight residential. If you go down Ivy Street, they're all sort of townhouse style environments. And one of those units is actually fully handicapped accessible with an elevator. So the owner will have accessibility to the upper stories there. We're excited about that. A lot of demand for that unit. What was your other question, Bill?
just anticipated completion date and how can people find out about availability and any financing programs you have associated with people being able to afford the units?
Thank you. So originally we had anticipated they'd be done by June. Everyone knows the bridge story. We were bumped out a couple of months. Our poor subcontractors, it was taking their workers about 2 hours a day to get to the site and get home. They've caught up actually, but we're anticipating around August, maybe a little sooner. They're very ambitious and they're working hard. So I'm going to take the outside at this point. We're working closely with Bank Rhode Island. They are finance the development and also got a significant grant for us to put into the project. And they're developing a special mortgage product that's going to be available to the purchasers. They're hoping to roll that out with us in a couple of weeks. And with that, we'll advertise on the site. We'll have a sign. We're going to be holding a series of home buyer education classes around town. And various, the mayor does a great show. We're hoping to go on that. Any of the local media outlets will advertise it. And again, do a lot of outreach to community organizations, businesses. We've gotten a lot of calls. We keep a list of folks. We're anticipating we're going to have to do a lottery for the units. So everyone will have a fair shot with 13 available units.
And these are owner-occupied units, right? Not rental.
They're all owner-occupied.
Any questions for Joe while he's here on the project of the timeline? So thanks, Joe. So the source of the transfer is that over the years, the commission, because of grant income and program income, we've accrued about $196,000 in unrestricted assets, which is pretty good considering our operating budget's less than $100,000. So we have like 2 times in reserves in our operating budget, which by any measure is pretty strong. So as of June 30th, 2023, we have $196,000 in reserves. And even after this proposed transfer, if it's approved, we'll still have a fairly healthy, unreserved, unrestricted amount of funds. We expect to continue our grant funding from the Rhode Island Commerce and other program fees. So I think that this is a good use of our reserves. There's really no other use of our reserves. So our operating expenses are very predictable. So with that said, I entertain a motion to transfer $103,625 for the drawdown to neighborhood Blackstone River Valley for the Ivy Place development. Have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the Metacomet Property LLC application for the proposed development located at 500 Veterans Memorial Parkway. Tonight's discussion will largely focus on the archaeological work that has been done to date and sort of what the next steps are. Is that part of that process? I believe the applicant has someone to make a presentation. Before we get started, though, I'd just like to, because we haven't had this before in any of our developments that have taken place. But Amy, if you could just provide sort of a context of why, in this case, this work is necessary.
So the property contains areas of historic significance. So the Rhode Island Historic Preservation Act provides that because the project requires review by state agencies, DEM, CRMC, those agencies are required to solicit comments from the Historical Preservation Office in Rhode Island. And that was done with the initial CRMC permitting associated with the earthwork for the golf course that took place last year. And the HPHC had determined at that time that with respect to those earthwork activities, a survey would not be required, but it was recommended that an archaeological monitor be present on site. So that permit relates to what was already done for the earthwork on the existing golf course. Permitting has not yet taken place, or a permit has not been filed for the aspects of the development that extend beyond the existing golf course. But in connection with that permit, HPHC will continue to be involved. And potential impacts on historic significance, archaeological significance, that will continue to be reviewed through the lead state agency for permitting, which is Coastal Resources.
Thank you. So what we'll do is we'll hear from the applicant and they'll have their testimony. The commission members will have the opportunity to ask questions. We'll have a public hearing that, again, mainly focusing on the archaeological aspects of the work. Their most recent report that was submitted to us this afternoon is available on our website. I think we'll get it to the commission members, but people have, their initial report has also been on our website for some time. So I'll ask the applicant, you probably just go to the one with the mic, Josh, and just introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Josh Berlinski. I'm an attorney with the firm of Darrow Everett. I represent the developer, as you all know. Tonight, as Mr. Fazioli mentioned, we're going to defer on discussing really any elements of the design of the project, and we're going to give the design review committee first crack, such as it is at those elements as is their purview. And once we meet before them, finally, hopefully, we will be back here to discuss that element in greater detail. Before I turn the podium over to Deborah Cox, I just wanted to provide a couple of brief updates on the application in the interim. And we'll obviously be discussing these in greater detail, but just to let the commission know about progress that we've made in the interim since we were here last month. In response to requests from the East Providence Department of Public Works, as well as the Water Department, the applicant has engaged Power Engineering to undertake a hydraulic flow analysis, which will assist those departments in reviewing the utility connections and the capacity contemplated by the application. Secondly, in response to the request from the Fire Department of East Providence, we've engaged the firm of Wasney Barber to serve as our fire suppression consultant. And this was of utmost concern to the fire department, as those of us know that have participated in the workshops previously. Wasney Barber will also undertake separately an HVAC analysis for the residential component of the project, and that will enable us to update the noise impact study, which has been a concern of the commission as well. Based upon the initial feedback from the commission following last month's hearing, we have also retained the services of Randy Collins of the firm Beta Engineering as an additional consultant. Mr. Collins has been a landscape architect for over 30 years in the state of Rhode Island, and he will be working with us on the DOT and Scenic Roadway Board submissions for us. And he will be speaking to the Design Review Committee next month on the application process, the customs and process of the DRC and Scenic Roadways, and how that process comports with this application. And we look forward to hearing from him, as I hope the DRC will as well. Last week, as you know, we received peer review comments to both the stormwater analysis as well as the traffic studies. We are working on our response to both of those, and we have to have those, we hope to have those in hand and able to discuss them in detail on the meeting on April 10th. Finally, as some of you may know, last week we received our initial written feedback from the Rhode Island Department of Transportation to the Crossman Engineering submission, what we've classified as a preliminary physical alteration permit, or PAP, submission. It was an extremely positive response in our opinion. We are continuing to work with DOT, and again, we intend to speak to all of this in greater detail at April's DRC meeting with hopefully further positive updates along those lines. But I want to assure members of the commission, as well as members of the public and dozens of people probably watching this at home, that we continue to work in good faith with the commission and the staff and departments and the public to address concerns as they arise. In furtherance of those concerns, last year, the applicant engaged PAL, the Public Archaeological Laboratory, to conduct an archaeological assessment, which we submitted in connection with our application. Deborah Cox, the president of PAL, is here tonight, and she is going to speak about those findings as well as subsequent reports that she's prepared on the applicant's behalf and where things stand in terms of that process. And obviously, Ms. Cox is available for any questions that you may have following her presentation. Along those lines, Mr. Fazzoli mentioned the submittal, the most recent one. I have hard copies for members of the commission as well. You mind passing them along? Thank you very much. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the lectern over to Deborah Cox. Thank you very much.
After their testimony, you certainly can, yeah, after they give their presentation. Yeah, they're going to go into this right now. Why don't you let them explain what they're doing, and then they'll be available for questions.
Good evening. Thanks, Josh. As Josh mentioned, I'm Deborah Cox. I'm the president of the Public Archaeology Laboratory. And we have been in communication with the Metacomet Property LLC individuals and their team since the end of 2023. They have asked us to do an assessment of the property. That was the very first thing we did. We did some background research. I think everyone is aware that there is an archaeological site, or there was an archaeological site excavated in the 1930s. It is not on the golf course property, but it is adjacent to that property. So the Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission indicated that there is the potential for cultural material to be on the golf course property. I'm not sure how much everyone knows about the golf course. It was built at the turn of the century, 1903. The design was by a golf course designer who believed in the least disturbance as possible, integrating the topographic features into the golf course design itself. So based on that and our background research, we said there is a possibility that there could be intact soils in the higher areas of the property. That was our first assessment back in November. In January and February, there was a geotechnical boring program proposed, and we monitored those borings. We had someone on site when the borings came out of the ground, and we looked at the soil profile. There are indications that in places on that property, there are intact soil horizons that could contain cultural materials. So it was our recommendation that those particular areas undergo a phase 1 archaeological survey. That has not happened yet. It is in the proposal stage. We are continuing to review the borings from the boring program that took place in 2022 before we were involved. So after we finish review of those borings and where there may be intact soils, we will develop a proposal for a phase 1 survey. In addition to our background research, we have been in communication with the Narragansett Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, Don Brown, who is aware of this project, who looks forward to communicating with the Metacomet people, the applicant, and they will be talking in the very near future about how to engage the Tribal Historic Preservation Office in the Phase 1 survey. When we do develop our Phase 1 proposal, it is submitted to the Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission. They approve it. They permit our work. The proposal is also given to the Narragansett Tribal Historic Preservation Office for approval. So we are in the preliminary stages. I want to assure everyone that we haven't started excavating, and we don't have any proof right now that there are cultural materials on the golf course. That is what we will be investigating in the future. So, any questions?
Just hold on. So we described a phase 1 survey. What includes,
sure.
what it is a phase 1 survey?
Phase 1 survey involves excavation of small 50 by 50 centimeter test pits, 17 inches or so, about 2 feet. We dig to what we call either the glacial till, the sea horizon soil, or to 3 feet. I mean, when you were digging by hand, you can't get much deeper than 3 feet. We dig in layers. We screen the material to look for any cultural artifacts, and then we fill the test pit back in. We record all of the soil strata. We record any materials we find, and the materials are brought back to the laboratory for processing and cataloging.
So once those samples are, reviewed and analyzed, what would be the next phase if there's evidence that there's cultural material found? What is the next phase?
Well, the next phase is to isolate or develop boundaries for that particular area. So we would do maybe more test pits around there to see how far out from the original find the archaeological site may be. Of course, we ask and recommend avoidance to any cultural materials.
And what state agency do you coordinate this work with?
Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission, they are the permitting agency, and they permit the archaeologist, not the development.
And what other entities do you coordinate this work with in terms of any tribal?
The Narragansett Tribal Historic Preservation Office, they often have someone with us on site. They do have the proposal. They do give their comments to the Historical Preservation Commission. And so basically they have approval over the scope as well.
In your initial report, I think in November, there's some discussion of the Jones Pond site where there was some evidence found back in 1939 of a shell heap and some other evidence of a settlement. Can you just describe for the commission a little bit what that entailed?
Well, back in the 30s, there were not, there were professional archaeologists, but they didn't often work in Rhode Island. So there was a Rhode Island Archaeological Society and a Massachusetts Archaeological Society, and there were people interested in the history of the Native American occupation. So we refer to these people as avocational archaeologists, meaning they didn't have formal training. They often excavated sites and kept the material for themselves. And through research by professional archaeologists, we are able to look at those collections if the people are still alive who excavated the site or their descendants let us do that. So the Jones site, was it in a Narragansett Archaeological Bulletin? There was a report written by the man who did it. And he described finding many tools, stone tools, shell heaps, and also a burial. We haven't seen any of that. All we have is what was written for the bulletin.
And for many people who don't know, the Jones's Pond site is the area that's behind the football stadium at Pierce Field. For people, I know people in East Providence probably know that, but some people watching might not be aware of that. So subsequent to that, 1939, obviously there was a redevelopment of the Pierce Field. There was the development of the golf course that started in 1903, you said?
I believe it was
1903. So the site has been obviously disturbed since 1939 through the continuation of the maintenance at the golf course over the years and then ultimate development of Pierce Field.
Correct. I think it's important for people to understand that there were tens of thousands of people that lived here before contact. So you could look almost anywhere and find evidence of people who lived here before contact.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission members?
Yes.
Steve?
Hello? That's better. Was there any record of a report or any findings conducted prior to the golf course being developed? I know it was really early on and it was probably amateur people at that point. But there wasn't-
No, not that we know of, no.
Anybody else from the commission? No, sir.
If I may go back, how many borings have you done?
Well, we haven't done any. There was a program of a geotechnical boring program to look at the soil composition. So we monitored probably 35 or 40 borings while the geotech people were out there. And we were able to record soil profiles. And obviously, we're only really interested in the top 5 feet or so. There was a boring program in 2022, and we're just starting to look at those soil profiles before we develop or submit our phase 1 proposal.
Was there a report for that 2022 boring?
That's the technical memorandum that I think was just handed out, yes.
Yes.
And it shows the locations of the bores that actually, it wasn't that many, probably more like 20. I apologize to the audience, but there are some representative soil profiles, which is on page 8, and 8, 9, and 10. So the first page, you can see that there's no soil strata left above the glacial till. And in those areas, we believe that there wouldn't be any possibility for cultural artifacts. You can see there's a soil profile that shows fill down to, we couldn't get any deeper than that. So there's a possibility there. There are other diagrams that show A, B, and C soil horizons. That's on page 10. There's a possibility there because that's a natural soil strata. So we've ruled out some areas definitely, but there are other areas that we will be investigating.
Most of these profiles show excavation.
Yes,
And it's proven there's a lot of work that's been completed on the site over the years. I mean, these are down 9 meters, some of them.
right, but you have to understand they're small soil borings.
But and
Right.
you can go up and down. But there is proof that a lot of work has been done on the site over the years.
Right, oh, yes, exactly.
So that's what these borings are proving, that you're not going down 2 feet or 12 inches and finding undisturbed soil.
Well, that is a possibility that there's 2 feet of fill and then there's undisturbed soil, yes. When we monitor geotechnical borings, we're not expecting to find anything. What we're expecting to find is where there is no soil strata and where there is, the possibility exists, so.
Through these borings, you're able to determine better where the major work has been completed as opposed to where the minor work has been completed.
Exactly.
on site.
The
Just
previous golf course development, maintenance, buildings.
To break it down so that the people in the audience can understand what a boring is and what this is all talking about.
Sure.
So these borings are just trying to explain the deeper they find undisturbed soil, that means that's more disturbance in that area, more fill, more activity. The higher the undisturbed soil, the less activity that's happened in these areas. So just to I'll break it down.
Thank you. That was as well as I could have explained it. So the less disturbance there is, the better we have a chance of finding something. And those are the areas we will be concentrating on.
And so, thank you. So, your next steps are to continue the analysis and then incorporate work with the tribe and then also statewide historic. And then a decision will be made as far as what next steps would be involved in terms of a continued examination of the property.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I guess any other commission members? Great. So we'll go ahead and allow public comment. If you want to come up, let's come up and introduce yourself at the podium so people on TV can hear you. Just state your name.
Belanoka Narragansett Tribal Elder. I just have a couple of questions first. Was this considered a archaeological dig, or was it just an opinion? There was no dig.
I think you're gonna have to come up to the mic to answer questions, unfortunately, so people can hear.
No, this wasn't a dig yet. It was just us monitoring the geotechnical boring.
Okay, I hear a lot of pretty words that I'm not familiar with, so forgive me. And I'm certain many of you aren't either. So geotech boring, you said? Okay, the same language was put in a report in South County. And they swore up and down that there was no remains, no artifacts, none of my ancient ones there. They were ready to dig in a parking lot over my ancient people, my grandmothers, my grandfathers. There was 99.9% chance that there was. But in the language that was drafted, just as pretty as what you have in your hand today, what you shared with everybody today, gave a thought in their mind that there was nothing there. And we had to stand up and we had to fight against that very pretty report. And when we fought against it, now see, I spoke with Charlotte. You know, you're familiar with Charlotte. Could you please tell me what office she's from?
Charlotte Taylor is with the Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission. She is the person that will review what we're going to do and talk with John Brown and issue a permit, or her office will issue a permit.
Okay, I spoke with Charlotte. And Charlotte wrote the Attorney General's office. And she said that she shared my concerns, that there are ancient remains there. She shared my concerns.
On this
That's-
site, on this particular site, or the one in?
On this particular site. It's with Peter Nerona. Peter received the email, and he has people on. I spoke with I have his name up here. I spoke with a young man who contacted me, and he will be working directly with my cousin, John Brown. John Brown is the Historic Preservation Officer. And normally, I didn't know that you could even disturb the ground, that you could do a survey, that you could do anything without there being some oversight from the tribe there. Because people have in the past, if I can finish, people have in the past in the Jones Pond, they butchered that grave site. And they took the remains and they put it in their museums and they put it in their homes and they hung artifacts on their necklaces. And then they returned them when they got tired, when people started getting a conscience. They got tired. And you know who buried them? Not the ones from Jones Pond, but my ancient ones. I had to bury 4 of them. My husband, one of the tribal elders, We had to bury them because they were sitting in their garage and one of the kids were disgusted. So this is what's happening to my ancient ones. It's pretty much what you see on TV today with Palestine, and I don't care who doesn't like what I say. I have a right as a Native American person who 90% of our people there was a genocide committed against them, and they're gone. So anyone that I can save today, protect today for the future, the next 7 generations, so they will know our history and we speak orally. I will protect them. And I mentioned that your parents, your family, they're probably over there at Swan Point or at the one Gates of Heaven, where my brother and sister are. You would not want anybody digging them up. I wouldn't even walk on somebody's grave because that's the way I was raised. I wouldn't even discuss building anything on somebody's grave prematurely until I found out. That's a cultural and traditional, that's a cultural difference. It's respect, it's honor, something that's not seen. This looks like what I see on TV today, waiting for the kids to hurry up and die and then dig up the rubble and build the houses. And that will happen.
Okay, thank you. I think, what we
I
have
don't think
today.
you like what I say. She was here longer than I. I feel as though I have a right.
Might be other people in the
No,
audience.
I
who
respect
might
that, and I'm
ask
going to get
questions,
off.
so.
But I just say this is just a premature assessment. It's an opinion. Just like their opinion that they gave with South County and the very classy people at the hospital pulled back within 2 weeks. They're very classy people up there. They pulled back and said, and apologized.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public have a question or comment? Let's come up here, Heather.
Hello, I am Heather Andrade from Keep Metacomet Green. I did have something prepared to speak about the Veterans Memorial Parkway, but I think there's a little confusion, Amy, because when you mentioned earlier that the RIHPHC said that a survey wasn't needed, that was for the golf course part. That was not for any of the other area, the development area. And it sounded like, it made it seem that you meant for the whole area, and it's not for the whole area. It was just for that.
I didn't take it that way. I think we are doing a survey. That's why she's
Right.
here to discuss. There is a survey ongoing for the.
A survey,
non-golf.
an archaeological survey?
I believe that's what was discussed tonight.
Did you say it's ongoing?
There was work been done, and they're continuing to do work, and they said that they're coordinating with the state historic preservation and members of the tribe. I mean, that was what she just said. Is that
Yep.
correct?
And so what I said was, it came across, as Amy was saying, that the survey was not needed for the golf course, when in fact, it was just for the mini golf course that was made, and it was not for the other development area. And I'm not sure. I have been shown these pictures of shell heaps, I believe shell heaps, on the Metacomet land. And no one has mentioned them. No one has seen them. Were they?
I
Were not on the land? Were you near? Yeah. So this was, I believe it was taken along the left-hand side, so near 17, 15, and 12 holes.
And when was the picture taken?
I received it maybe September, October.
Who took the picture?
Oh, I just received it.
And how, do you know if in fact it's a picture of the Metacomet?
You can tell.
Okay, you
Yep.
could tell
Would you like
how.
would you like to,
Sure.
would you like me to pass it around? Because I have others. And so nobody has seen this on Facebook. Nobody's questioned it at all.
Have those pictures been presented to HPHC? Because I would suggest if you have concerns related to historic preservation and archaeological significance, HPHC is the agency that can review that evidence and answer any questions you might have about the process.
Yes, I have been in touch. Thank you. But the reason I am here, standing up here right now, is to inform all of you that that is on the Metacomet land. None of you mentioned it. I know you read the Facebook pages that we have. I've mentioned them before. No word. Why is that?
I see a picture of a mounded dirt. That's all I see. I can't tell that it's shell heaps. And even if it is shell
You're
heaps,
not even curious.
it's probably something that's relatively recent. I wouldn't say it's historic or
Well,
prehistoric.
you're not you don't have that knowledge
Right.
to even
But,
make that.
but you
sort of
do,
statement.
right? Okay.
Well, I think I know more than you on this subject, but
Okay,
not
of
for nothing,
course.
but I've studied it way more than you have. So that's what I just wanted to say.
Have you seen that shell heap yourself?
I've seen the pictures. I've seen where it is.
Have you seen the shell heap?
I've seen the pictures. I've seen where it is.
Okay.
And, oh, you know what? It is thank you. It's in the video. We had a video done of the area. And while it was during when you were boring, when there was digging into the soil with nobody else present, especially the Narragansett tribe. So please stop saying all this stuff and making people believe one thing when it's not. If anybody really wants the truth, talk to Keep Metacomet Green, because we know all it's, laugh away, but we know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Bert, come on up. You can just come over here. Yeah, sure.
Evening, Randy Noka, Narragansett Tribal Elder. Not an expert in the archaeological field and studies and borings and all, but I'm a tribal member. And one thing you said earlier that really resonated with me was that anywhere you look, it's Narragansett land. Anywhere you look, where we are tonight, whatever was done to put this building here and that we can sit here tonight, it goes without saying, but I'll say it, that despite what may be undisturbed now, any building, any road, this building, golf course, there was some kind of disturbance done of my people. Rest assured, maybe not a burial, maybe not a culturally sensitive area, but there was disturbances done. Not all these buildings in development that East Providence is now, that Rhode Island is now, or became Rhode Island, southern New England, is the Aboriginal unceded territory of the Narragansett Nation. And despite what's being planned here, and certainly I'll be holding everyone accountable. I live in Richmond, not a resident here, but my ancestors paid for that with their blood for me to be here tonight. So I may not be a resident. My grandparents from Seekonk, members of the Seekonk Wampanoag tribe. So there's an interest on my part, my wife's part, of members of the tribe, historic preservation officer. I would hope, I would implore, and I'll keep an eye on it. I would hope this commission, members of the council, whatever, keep an eye on it that won't allow further disturbance of what atrocities that have already been done. Because anytime you put a shovel to the ground, wear shed or some kind of bucket and excavation or whatever, you're disturbing something, if not directly in that spot, then close to it. Jones Pond, I guess it's called. I'm not familiar, so forgive me with that. Jones Pond, adjacent to this development. And there's findings there. But just because whatever boring pits, 7 or whatever you mentioned have been done, on how big of an acre, parcel is this? 100 acres? How big is Metacom? 100?
The land mass is 118 acres, I believe.
118 acres. How much of the that area did these pits, borings take up? Well, I mean, in area. 10, 15, 20 feet, whatever, an acre, whatever, out of 150 acres. And that nothing's been found yet in those 10, 20, whatever borings. Well, I hope you don't go by that test and those results to move forward with this project. Again, however John Brown's involved with this, or tribe, however they're represented, the folks that have their own concerns about what's being developed, I would expect, without question, that the tribe is involved and that nothing moves forward until 100% satisfaction on the part of the people involved with such a project, including the Narragansett Nation, are satisfied. No disturbance, whatever surveys need to be done, archaeological surveys and dig, has to be done before any spade is put to the ground to make part of this development move forward. The tests have to be done because there's been enough atrocities perpetrated against my ancestors to date. So don't let it happen again. And please, I'm not begging them. I can't demand, I suppose. What's also disturbing about this project, I heard it last time, that these good folks that live in this town, in this area, adjacent to or whatever border this proposal, they don't get a say in it, I guess. It all relies upon the council and the mayor, their final decision. It doesn't go to a vote of the people, is what I'm told or understanding. Why is that? If the town charter allows that, then shame on the charter, and you people should make a difference, change it. No council of 10 or whatever, and the mayor and the council of 10 should have the kind of authority that's going to change forever the people of this town and that board of that development. They should be making the decision. But don't let this move forward. Don't let it move forward without the tribe being satisfied.
Thank you. I believe we are taking the necessary steps to include the tribe and the Historic Preservation Office. So I believe that's the case. There will be additional work being done, Brian. Sure.
Thank you briefly, and I'm sorry, I'll let the public continue to comment. Just so there's no misunderstanding for the commission, that once PAL refines the scope of the survey, which they are doing right now by virtue of reviewing the results of the boring they oversaw, as well as the previous boring program, they are going to make a recommendation to the developer as to what the scope of the survey should be, based on the elevations they've identified of significant concern. For the record, once the scope of that survey has been confirmed, it is the applicant's intention to proceed with that survey. So we are relying upon the expert, the premier firm that in New England is as renowned for this practice as anyone. We have engaged them because we understand this is an area of importance to the commission, to the city, and members of the public. Once the scope of the survey is identified, we intend to proceed with the survey. There's no confusion. Let there be no doubt that we understand the severity of the issue and we are prepared to act accordingly and responsibly.
Right. And you're saying that additional coordination with the Historic Preservation will continue along with the individuals from the Narragansett tribe in terms of the historical officer will be continue involved in this process as it unfolds.
Correct.
And can I ask a question for either Mr. Berlinski or Ms. Cox? If PAL recommends the survey be, limited to whatever area they recommend, can HPHC request that be expanded? How would that process take place?
The HPHC and the Narragansett Indian Tribal Historic Preservation Office both will review our proposal. If they want additional areas, they will request it, and that additional area will be incorporated.
And am I correct in understanding that the survey is done before HPHC permits any? What is the relationship of the permit to the development work, the permit issued by HPHC?
That permit is issued to the archaeologist before the survey is done. It's a protection for everyone, because you wouldn't want to do a survey and then go to the HPHC and they say, well, wait a minute, that's not what we wanted. We want something else. We want something more. So they permit us and they review our proposal and say, yes, this is adequate. Or they comment and say, we want X, Y, and Z, and we then incorporate it.
So if the permit is issued, and the survey reveals a burial site, for instance, in the middle of the proposed development, what would be the options for the applicant? What would be the legal requirements? I assume one would be eliminating that area from the development. How would that work?
Well, there is a Rhode Island burial law, and if a burial is found, everything stops immediately. There's a whole list of people that you notify, including the medical examiner, the state police, if it's determined that it is Native American, the Native American tribes. And honestly, that is not moved. It is avoided. The area would have to be eliminated from the development.
Thank you.
Or do you ever want to, sure, if you want to come up so that there's people watching on TV and the only way they can hear you is if you speak through the mic.
Just, so I'm clear, I want to make sure that for the record that what I just heard, that the HPAC and the Narragansett tribe through its historic preservation officer have to agree on your findings of PAL, and both have to agree. So if the HPAC doesn't agree, no, it doesn't need a survey, but John Brown in his capacity says, yes, we need to do this, that's what it's going to be held to.
The HPHC forwards our proposal before they issue the permit to John, and they talk with John. And if John has comments or wants something in particular that is agreed upon between the two agencies, between the tribe and HPHC, before the permit is issued. And then we revise our permit to address their comments. Yes, they will both agree.
John doesn't, then what more needs to be done?
We wouldn't do anything without a permit from HPHC. So they're not going to issue us a permit unless John is satisfied.
Thank you. The question is for the people on TV, would the federal government be involved?
No, not necessarily. Well, the federal government would get involved if we found a body on federal property or if there was a federal permit needed by this project. But there is no federal permit needed by this, and there's no federal funds, correct? So.
Okay, thank you. You've been very informative. I don't know if there's any other questions or questions on this particular topic. If you want to come up and introduce yourself. Just say your name, yeah.
Hi, I am Christina Cabrera. I am a resident of the state of Rhode Island. I want to state my concern and my support of the Narragansett Indian tribe. I do have some concerns about how the tests are being conducted. There was a phase 1 that was mentioned. I don't know what phase 2, phase 3, or what the timeline is, but 3 feet depth is of concern. I don't know the legislation, but traditionally, graves were deeper than that, double the depth. So that's a concern of mine, and there were reasons for doing that. And what is concerning is, as Randy Nota said, this was a village. And if there are some inches here or there that seem to be clear, you're still digging the cultural heritage, digging up the cultural heritage of an ancestry of the Narragansett Indian tribe. And it is important to recognize the history of this country. The biggest genocide that has happened in humanity in world history has been that of the native people of this land. And there, we can send references and if that's helpful, but that's a reality, and we cannot perpetuate that genocide with cultural genocide. So let's be very, very aware and very conscious of what's happening. And profit cannot be over people. Thank you.
Anybody else? Dirk, come on up. Just state your name. So,
Hi, my name is Kaliko Schumann. I'm a resident of the state of Rhode Island. And I just have some rhetorical questions, and if you would let me finish my points, and I will gladly answer questions after. One of these points is if there's artifacts found, like any artifacts, will the work stop immediately, or will construction barrel over it since the developer wants to make money? The reason I'm thinking of this is that most people, not a lot of people, especially developers, would not even tell us if something is found. This is not directly pointing at anyone. This is just people in general. And regardless of any construction, it will disturb natural wildlife, trees, and just the area in general. If there's like any animals, their habitats could be destroyed permanently, and they could go possibly extinct in this state.
thank you. Anybody else? Just state your name when you get up to the mic.
Dennis Morris, a resident of Riverside. Is it Deb? I was just trying to understand the two phases that have been done so far. I understood that you got involved in actual observation on the second phase since November. The first phase, why was there no observation done? Okay.
Oh, Josh, can you provide an answer to that?
No, that was it. I just didn't understand.
So the applicant was under in due diligence to acquire the property, and they performed borings on site. Obviously, it's their property. They had the right to perform the borings. The borings are not prohibited by any state law or permit. Once we became aware, that the site had archaeological significance, and that we had heard from CRMC and State Historic as to the need for a review of the processes and the protocol, then we immediately implemented a monitoring program with PAL. So the answer is that the 2022 borings, the results of which we're sharing with PAL. I mean, we've identified them. Those records are ours. We're giving them to PAL to consult with, and so that they can see them. But the monitorings, but PAL is aware of the monitorings and the process. And as Deborah mentioned, the borings themselves are relatively small in scope and diameter, and they were permitted as of right, as they were in November, January, and February. It's just that simply once we became aware of the state agencies' expressed concern for this issue, we stopped what we were doing and put a whole program in place necessary to ensure that all the concerns were being addressed. So the honest answer is in 2022, no one had said anything to us along these lines. And once we became aware of the issues through CRMC and State Historic, we changed course, and that's the answer.
Thank you. Sure, Mr.
Sure.
Sure. Past two meetings, I've heard a lot about the monitoring of these surveys. Good. Is that good? Okay. Past two meetings, I've heard a lot about monitoring. When you do an archaeological survey, is that like an industry practice to have someone monitor the work you're doing?
So we monitored a geotechnical boring program, and maybe someone from
No, I think they're referring to a representative of the tribe being monitoring your work.
Oh, that is pretty much industry standard. We have Native Americans with us on, I would say, 95% of the surveys that we do.
Did you do it in this case?
We didn't do an archaeological survey yet in this case.
Okay. When you do one, will you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's not here, so I mean, I don't know what was said at the meeting, but we are following the state law. We are following the process. So regardless of what this said, we are following the process and it's prescribed by state law. So, I mean, yeah, I would do that maybe after the meeting.
Not a member.
No. Yeah, again, it's something that's, even despite what the mayor says, we are following the state law and the process and the procedure. So you want to come up again, Heather? Although you won't be able to hear you on TV, so.
So I also want to correct maybe another assumption. People are assuming that the city did not know that Metacomet was highly sensitive, and because there was a letter from Paul Lothar from the RIHPC director from 2020 from Patrick Hanner, the planner of East Providence. And in that letter, it does say that that area is it's probably highly sensitive historically. Then there was another letter in August 2023 that said almost exactly the same thing, and that was signed by Jeff Emity, the director of RIHPHC currently. So I don't know. How do you explain that?
Well, all I can say, Heather, is what we've heard tonight. There is an archaeological study being done. It's coordinating with the State Historic Preservation and the tribe. So, I mean, I don't know what else we can say, that we are following the process that's outlined by law.
Following the process now that you've been found out.
That's right. You don't have to raise your hand. You just walk up. There's some other people who want to speak that haven't spoke yet. I mean, did you want to come up? I'd just like to have other people have the opportunity to talk. So
Absolutely. I'm not looking to cut anyone off. But you may get tired of hearing it. I heard tribe more. It's the Narragansett Tribal Nation. John Brown, Historic Preservation Officer. No other tribe should be contacted. I heard the tribe, someone from tribe is usually involved with surveys or tests or whatever with PAL, I guess, but not sure what that means. Tribe versus Narragansett Tribal Nation, because there's a lot of tribes out there, and I'm just focusing on D1 that should be involved and notified and John Brown's office. And I don't think I touched on it earlier, but it was just raised. It reminded me that Jones Pond and findings there, without doubt, no question. It's not like once the boundary stops of Jones Pond and Metacom starts, that's where the findings stop. It makes sense that they'll continue on. That's how my people lived back then. So it's not like, well, here's the boundary. Here's Smith property, here's Noka property. It stops at the Noka property. It doesn't work that way. So these surveys and studies and whatever need to be done. And as I've heard several times and made sure that it was heard by whoever's watching, that the Narragansett Tribal Nation is involved in all studies and decisions.
I believe that was the testimony provided by, that they are coordinating with Narragansett member John Brown. So.
And treaties and whatever done throughout the history of this country, all of them violated.
Would you like to come up?
Hi, my name is Deborah Ormerod. I am a resident of East Providence. I am also on the vice president of the East Providence Historical Society, and I'm the chairman of the East Providence Historic District Commission. My question was simple, was just what's the timeline? The timeline for all of this?
Well, we anticipate that we will be able to finish our review of the borings provided to us from 2022 and develop a proposal in the next few weeks. After that, when we're giving a directive from the developer to submit that proposal and permit application to the commission and to John Brown, we will do so. It generally takes a minimum of 10 days to 30 days to get a permit. And we would conduct the survey after that.
That's just, so if people understand, it's not a permit to develop, it's a permit to do the survey.
It's a permit to do the survey, not for the development itself.
Thank you. Anybody else that hasn't spoken yet? Just to be fair, if you want to come up.
Just a question is, how long does the survey itself typically take?
The survey will probably take 2 to 3 weeks in the field. It depends on the weather. Not the weather.
How long to produce the report? And the fund?
Another 30 to 45 days after we finish the field work.
Thank you.
Hello there. My name's Steve Schuman. I'm from Riverside. And wasn't actually related to any Narragansett natives. We came a lot later, but I can understand this. And first things, as far as questions for you, Miss Deborah, I was just wondering, have they ever considered working with GPR, like ground penetrating radar?
You just come up to the mic and then so we can respond.
We do work with ground penetrating radar sometimes. However, it is not conclusive, so you do have to ground truth it. And in areas with rock or in areas of considerable disturbance, you don't know what the signatures mean. The signature is something that you get on paper when you run the GPR machine over the ground surface. So we do use it, but it wouldn't really be effective in this case.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure because realistically, you have to remember, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into a golf course. So they're going to terraform it even back in the 1900s and the 1800s, 1900s, when they actually started this golf course, they would have done a lot of work anyways. So digging down 3 feet, it's not going to be a lot of difference if you got a whole bunch of soil over. That means you're going to have to dig further in order to actually get results and possibly artifacts, evidence. God forbid it's a burial site. Maybe that's well deserved. As far as it's one of those things where when how many subsequent renovations of the golf course have there been? Because they're going to obviously fill in more soil to replace the soil that's eroded over the time going towards the bay. So we don't know exactly what's down there. I do know that the Narragansett Nation should be involved in this. In fact, I think that there should be a full comprehensive archaeological investigation, but the Narragansett should be the people choosing who actually oversees it. Because realistically, I don't trust Marshall. I don't care what you think. They're the developer. It's not part of their motives. Oh, I'm sorry, interests. But it's one of those things where, you know, it was also, you know, one of those things where people forget that this was Narragansett land. But even when Roger Williams came all the way over, he stopped here in East Providence first. And then the Pilgrims, Plymouth Plantation, said, oh, well, you got to keep on going. So you had to cross the river. Otherwise, maybe we would have been the state capital. Who knows? But it's one of those things where, you know, we can't keep on making the same mistakes. We don't want to be like Plymouth Plantation and totally just ignore the people who were here first. That would be a disservice to basically any native tribe nowadays. And honestly, if this is not followed appropriately, maybe the Narragansett Nation should take a page from the Muskogee over in Oklahoma, because they got recognized recently, if you haven't heard. So it's one of those things where definitely you want to take a really good look at this archaeological dig. And if you respect the history of the people that we came here and actually did take the land from, you know, there's time to make amends. So that's all I'm going to say to that.
Thank you.
I'll get to the animals some other time.
Sure. Andy, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Candy Steele. I'm here representing Keep Metacomet Green. I didn't want to cut off anyone else who wants to speak, but I just wanted to make a few comments. One, I thank you, Chairman Fazioli, for giving me the heads up that the monitoring report was on the website. You told us that this afternoon. I appreciate it. We also appreciate that you have appointed 2 new members to the Design Review Committee, non-commission members, independent advisory members. We've been asking for this since December, and we appreciate getting that done. We would also appreciate, as a side note, if the website is cleared up so there's only 1 application packet on the site, only 1 flow chart on the site instead of 2 separate and distinct application packets. Thank you. I believe I heard Mr. Belinsky say that they had received a positive response from Mr. Rocchio at the RIDOT on the traffic study. I did not see that on the website. I wonder if that's available.
We don't have that, so I don't believe that's been provided to us. So I know there was an initial letter from DOT, but if that's something that could be made available, sure. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. On the borings, I've listened to so many people talk about the borings, but I'm still not quite sure about it. Let me just ask another question. Again, Mr. Belinsky, I think you said that borings were done when you purchased the property in 2020. No, you didn't say that. Okay. But in 2022, the geotech boring program was done. Was that done by the property owner? By the property owner. And Ms. Cox, were you there on the ground, or did you just accept the borings as presented? Thank you very much. Another note, if I may, talk about Jones Pond, the proximity to Metacomet. We know from a study done in the 1970s when the Kettle Point area was first being remediated, or at least talked about for remediation, artifacts were found there. So we know that from Jones Pond all the way down Metacomet to Kettle Point and probably beyond, there are artifacts. I think it's very important, obviously, that not a full survey, but a complete survey be done of Metacomet. Lastly, at the February 15th meeting, Bella and Randy Noka and a young man from the Nipmuc Nation, I believe, expressed an interest in having a cultural center on the property that would recognize the 10,000 years of Native American residents on that property. If they are still proposing that, and I hope they are, Keep Metacomet Green is in complete support of that initiative, and we would hope that somewhere in the development, you might find a place to recognize Native American heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. So Josh, I don't know if you want to respond to some of the issues that were raised. So
The only issue I'll respond to is with regard to the DOT correspondence. Mr. Fazioli was sent it to you, and Mr. Levy responded to it. So I'm happy to resend it, and then you can post it on the website. It's an initial response. We think it's a good one, and we are hopeful to have further conversations and correspondence from DOT prior to the April 10th DRC hearing.
yeah, I may have missed it in the course of emails, but we'll search it and make sure we get it. Mr. Levy's on a religious pilgrim this week, so he's not available. He's on a retreat, so he'll be back on Monday after the Easter holiday.
Thank you, Bill.
So, just any last issues or questions? Sure, after we get through this, yeah. I mean, you can mention it, but we're not really prepared to respond to it tonight. But if you want to talk about that, sure. Sure, go ahead.
This is a request for this city council, understanding that East Providence has been built on top of Narragansett Indian Tribal Village. As soon and having heard that there have been past letters from state agencies identifying the cultural sensitivity of the area, that this council pass an ordinance that when such alerts happen, that triggers immediately the surveys that need to happen. And before any developer or any commercialization of the land happens, there needs a process needs to start of land rematriation to the Narragansett Indian tribe. There can be a fund that can be set up by the city to purchase that land for the private owner and return it back to the rightful stewards of this land First Nation. It is the right thing to do. It is the moral thing to do. It's the human thing to do. So I ask that an ordinance be passed that immediately that will trigger this process when a cultural sensitivity area is found.
Yeah, so we're not the body that would make that decision. That would be the city council. We're not the city council.
Okay.
So that would be another meeting you would have to go to and make
But
that
can you
request.
propose it for city council?
Sure, I could mention it. Maybe some of them are watching tonight, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll give you one last opportunity to speak, and then I think we have a couple of other items on the agenda.
A question, is there any businesses of Native American ran in East Providence? Do you have?
I don't have any knowledge
Is
of
there
that.
anything other than the recent committee that the mayor started with indigenous people? Are there anything that shows that Native Americans were ever here?
I'm not aware of that, no.
No, that is called erasure. You do know that, right? That's called erasure. When you don't mention and you fail to even let the name Narragansett Tribal Nation, a federally recognized tribe, the only federally recognized tribe in the state, what is now known as the state of Rhode Island. When you can't let those words fall on your lips and out your mouth, that's sad. There's the most diverse commission I ever seen. I spoke with Robert Brito recently, and I had a conversation with him, and I told him about our ancient ones being under these grounds. And he said that he fought for you guys to get in, but he wasn't aware of that part. I don't know how true that is. I will speak to him a little deeper, a little further, but that is what he said to me. And had he known that, I'm sure it would have went different.
Okay, thank you.
No, no, thank you. I'm not
I
done.
think we're ready to move on. I think
So
we've
anyway,
had
I
several
just want to be
opportunities to
treated
speak.
like the blonde when I step up here. That would be really, really nice. And you can see for yourself out there who are watching this, that not everyone is treated the same in this room. Please be aware, you won't be treated the same if they are able to build this facility. Right now, you have the power and they bank on the elders and the schools and the churches. But when they come in and there's over 800 units and in each house, there's about 3 adults. Now you triple that number and they are going to outnumber you and their rents are not cheap. You will no longer be a part of East Providence. You will be a part of the past.
So I know we didn't have, we weren't, if you want to come, I know you sent the information about the noise study. We're probably going to discuss that at the April 10th Design Review Committee. But if you just want to make a brief discussion of what what some of the material you sent over, but it wasn't something that the applicant was prepared to discuss tonight. They don't have their noise expert today. Introduce yourself.
I sent this, obviously you've already seen this. Okay, great. My name's John Heaney. I live in Rumford. There's 2 reasons why I wanted to bring this up tonight. One is because I'm not going to be here on the 10th. I came here to the last review meeting and it was canceled because of lack of quorum. So the other reason is because I think this issue is more general than just, there's a specific concern with Metacomet, but it also applies to the entire waterfront, not just this one project. So, my main concern is with noise issues from this development. My wife and I used to live on Federal Hill in Providence, and we're very familiar with noise issues. We used to live near the highway and there was manufacturing across the highway. We were 1 street away from Atwells Avenue. We lived there for 6 years without any serious issues. But then the city of Providence started licensing entertainment with the Take It Outside program. And the outdoor entertainment is actually what drove us out of our home. We really couldn't live in our house. So we ended up moving to Rumford.
You just might want to move a little closer to the mic so we could pick you up. There we go.
So we're very experienced with noise issues, is basically what I'm saying. I read the report, the preliminary report that was done, and my concern is that it focuses on the day-night noise level type of study, which is related to like traffic. There was some mention about construction noise, but I don't think those are the kinds of sound issues that are really going to present the potential problems that I'm concerned about anyway, or that the residents will be concerned about. The current concerns that I have are the kinds of noise issues that would generate complaints, so where residents would be calling the police and making complaints about them, or cars or whatever. So, and those are a function of the city ordinances, right? And state law too. So the specific concerns I have with this, actually, before I say that, I also wanted to include it on the last page of this packet, a resolution from the city of Providence, which was directed at the East Providence City and this commission in response to the bold point, which is why I'm saying this is a more general issue than simply the Metacomet development. So in this resolution, they actually asked for some kind of a sound assessment for that development because they're concerned about the sound of the music being projected towards Fox Point. So that's more the type of study that I think needs to be done on some of these developments.
Okay, for this particular one, you're asking for more
Yeah,
in-depth
so I'm
sound
looking
assessment.
At the plans.
Yep.
And there is an outdoor amphitheater. I don't know what that's going to be. There's also some outdoor raised patios, like second floor outdoor patios. So to the extent that there could be outdoor entertainment, amplified music, I would be concerned about those. I think that the study should kind of address or assess those types of issues, right? Because I think there's a perception that the distance involved with the cove and with the golf course would mitigate sound issues, but that's actually not the case. I can tell you that sound will travel to the extent that there are no barriers.
Yeah, I think we're all familiar with the music coming over from Providence. So in the summer, we hear it throughout East Providence. So I think we're all
Yeah,
very familiar with that. So, and I think at the time when we get to that aspect, we'll be asking questions about what type of entertainment will be proposed, if it'll be amplified, what the hours of operation are. But we'll certainly be discussing that at the appropriate time. So, but you have your information, and then, you know, please understand, we'll have more hearings other than April 10th. There'll be more opportunity to express your concerns at the appropriate time. We'll have several more meetings on this regarding the development, but I know you were in the audience and you sent the information, expected to speak tonight. So
Yeah, I just didn't, there was an actual preliminary study.
yes, yep.
And I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure that that wasn't going to be the only study.
No, there'll be additional work in that area. So thank you. Does anybody else want to discuss the public hearing matters? So sure, come on up, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Dan Bodwin, I live in East Providence. Just very, very briefly, I know we're going to talk about specifics of traffic and noise studies at later meetings, but I think it's important that we get the right information, and I think there is some more information needed in order to make a good decision going forward. One is the fact that the peer study to date has identified, 34 different points that have to be addressed. So I assume that that consultant is working on those. We'd like to see the results of that. An important point is that the consultant only peer reviewed the Banas study, the first study. He has not peer reviewed the Crossman study, which is the recent study. So that consultant has to peer review that, get questions and get answers on that. There's also, in any study that I looked at, no discussion about trucks, truck routes, truck noise, nothing about trucks. You would think you'd want to get into that question as well. And the residential streets of Lyon and Fort and Mercier, there's not a lot of traffic analysis there because there's no use of traffic counts. Although I mentioned the last meeting that the police department did counts this fall, 2023, but they haven't been put into any traffic study that I've seen. And that's very critical, the whole traffic counts in the neighborhood. So I think there's just more work to be done, hopefully even before the design review committee, but probably after that. So that's the only point I want to make, is that both in traffic and in noise, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I hope you're going to do it.
Thank you.
Sure you
No,
are.
absolutely. There'll be additional work being done. And just for the public's information, we did ask for peer review of the fiscal impact study that was prepared as well. So the commission is asking for another set of eyes to look at the fiscal impact that was prepared by the applicant. So that engagement just started. I think we talked to them on Monday, so that should be underway, and that information will be made available as soon as it's ready. So, do we continue the hearing, Amy, or do we make a motion to continue the hearing to a date certain, or do we pick a date?
That would be the Waterfront Commission's next meeting in April is scheduled for April 18th, 7 p.m.
Sure. Can I make a motion to that effect? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, great. That's continued. And then I just want to go back to one issue on the agenda I skipped by mistake, but there's we want to change the times of our Waterfront Commission meetings and subcommittees from 6:30 to 7 for the remainder of 2024. just so we're consistent, so people don't get confused and don't show up at the appropriate time. So we have to take a vote to adjust our schedule. And Dave came up with this idea, so he asked that we make it official. So this way, all of the meetings going forward will be at 7 o'clock, so we don't have any confusion with different meeting times. So if I could have a motion to, is there a second? Sure. All those in favor of the Dave O'Connell resolution motion? Thank you. The motion passes. So that's it. The only staff report, I said Mr. Laby's on a religious pilgrimage this week. He'll be back Monday after the holiday. So he didn't have a staff report. I think he has a vow of silence for the week. So I'll take a vote for the motion to adjourn. Second, all those in favor? Thank you. So just remember, April 10th is our next meeting at 7 o'clock.